Hello, and welcome back. I know it's been a while since we've done an episode of the podcast with an awesome name, but even awesome guests. But good things come to those who wait, and we have a fantastic episode for you all today. Joining me is the Group Managing Executive for Ariston Global. Ariston Global is not just Ariston Global Accounting and Advisory. It's broken up into four different divisions at Ariston Global, Ariston Capital, Ariston Grow, and Ariston Technologies. And with me here today is one of its co-founders, very charismatic individual, very knowledgeable in the space of accounting, HR, payroll, you name it, he knows it. Suran Moodley, nice to have you with me, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
How are you dealing with this bloody cold here in Johannesburg over the last couple of weeks, man?
Well, as you can see, it's the big jackets. We dress warm. We try not to overburden the electricity system. So we make eco-friendly decisions.
I like that. I like that. So let's kick off. Give us a little background into the man behind the brand. I know a little bit about you. We've been working together now for the past 5 years, with me being your zero account manager. But for those who don't know you, give us a little background into Suran and what makes him tick.
Okay, all right. So Suran is at the very core a dreamer, right?
Okay.
From a very young age, there was a quote that I read that stuck with me by George Bernard Shaw, often attributed to JFK and his brother. But George Bernard Shaw, in one of his plays, said, "Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream things that never were and say, why not?" Right? And that has been an inspiration for me, throughout my life. As well as growing up as a Star Wars geek, technology, it's different world. So, so that's the conceptual framework I see the world through.
Tell me about those early days, growing up. I know you're from Devon.
Yeah.
Tell me about those early days as this young dreamer. What did you see yourself becoming, or what was the dream ultimately? Let's call it as a 15-year-old young man growing up in which part of Durban are you from?
Just south of Durban, actually, Isipingo.
Isipingo.
Yeah.
Okay. As a young 15-year-old in Isipingo, what were the dreams that you were reaching for, and what was shaping your mind at that time?
It was an interesting time to grow up in. It was before democracy, giving away my age. But it was a different space. Growing up at the coast, you had different experiences. So, spending time with friends, skateboarding, bodyboarding, surfing, enjoying the coastal lifestyle. But at the same time, being very ambitious, seeing the world and seeing potential in the world. We were being fairly exposed to technology. Microsoft was coming around and computers were becoming more accessible. And it's always about solving problems. I remember as a kid, having terrible handwriting. Well, I still do have terrible handwriting. But then you watch movies and they're using keyboards and computers to do things, and you're like, if I can just survive these school days, one day I'll be working a computer and I won't be getting chastised for bad handwriting. And it was those kind of things. It was a very interesting time. I mean, we joke and we refer to it as BC. So before computers, before cell phones, that kind of space. But very exciting. It was, at the beginning of tech. So lots happening back then.
High school, moving into university. You went to which university?
I went to what was then University of Natal, Durban, UK is in now, Howard College campus. Interesting transition, being science orientated. All my subjects in school were science computer science, physics, bio, and so on.
Yeah.
But later on, I got interested in psychology and people.
Okay.
It's philosophy, the
Okay.
arts, as it were. And then you
Okay.
do this transition. I could have gotten away with like woodwork and art and so on in high school, but I tortured myself. And eventually, did a degree with psychology and sociology and industrial psychology. Complete transition, going from, the concrete stuff that you can see and touch and feel, and computer science. And, we're doing basic coding back then on Pascal.
Yeah.
And now getting into this intangible, incorporeal world of the mind and people and behavior.
Something that doesn't, you don't really use technology for that skill set.
No, it's totally out of the ordinary,
Yeah.
But having said that, you can apply certain underlying principles to everything, right?
Yeah.
So if I recall, like Newton's third law, Newton's first law actually says that a body traveling in a straight line will continue to do so unless acted upon by an equal or opposite force in the absence of friction, right? Which is physics. But if you look at and think about a person is exactly the same. Raising kids, they're going to do what they want to do until you impose a force upon them to change their mind and direction. Not a physical force, but you have to have a compelling argument.
Yep. Okay. I like that. I don't know about the analogy, especially in this household. There's some forceful children that, regardless of the type of force applied on them, they still kind of get away with what they're going to get away with. Before you joined Ariston, you spent your time in the HR space. What did that teach you about people? What did that teach you about yourself? And how did that prepare you for your next, which should be now your time at Ariston Global in the early days?
Sure. So, my corporate journey was quite interesting. As much as I was in HR, I would always dabble in other areas, got heavily involved in procurement. There was an aviation company that I worked for where I eventually took over the IT department for a little while.
Okay.
So, I'm very much interested in a lot of things at the same time. And I believe the world works together, not in silos, but in integrated systems, right? So, yes, I started off in human resources. In fact, I started off in general operations and general management, and then focused on HR because it was what I studied. But I always broadened out into other areas of a business, right? What I learned from an HR perspective is HR is not what people think it is. Majority of people think of HR as recruitment, discipline, payroll, okay? And they don't leverage the full value of it, or you get the school of thought where they see it as social work. The HR person is the person you go cry to or will fix my problems or whatever. Human resources is a lot more diverse, right? We say, it takes care of everything from hire to retire. So we actually engineer positions in an organization. We define the person that needs to take on that role. We then source that person. So there's an engineering aspect, there's a procurement aspect, right? Then there's performance management. Then there's the social aspect. Then it's about servicing and balancing out the requirements of management and employee. And it's about looking to the future as well. So making sure people are, tech savvy, for instance, to be able to adapt, to be agile and flexible for the changing world that we live in.
So it sounds more like you, or let's call it the HR departments within organizations, they're more responsible for actually building the culture of that organization. If you put the wrong person in a certain role, regardless if that person is fit for the role, has the qualifications, they need to understand the nuances of the entire organization to know which person would be fit for which role to help this organization grow sustainably.
100%. It's not just, the culture. I see it as organizational capability, right? A good HR department would ensure that a business has the organizational capability to deliver on its business objectives, right? And, I always use analogies. So if I look at like systems and technology, we talk of hardware and software. Same thing with people, right? People are your hardware, your software is your culture, how people
Mm.
gauge, how they gel. You can't see, touch, smell the software, you engage with it. Same thing with culture. You'll feel the culture, you can't see it, touch it, smell it, right?
Yeah.
And this is why we always recruit on attitude and not skills. We can train skills, we cannot train attitude. So when someone's ambitious and they have the right personality and the right attitude, right, we grab them and we
Yeah.
develop them and we give them the necessary skills. We empower them with the relevant technologies and we allow them to do what they do best, right? And that's a massive key to success. And it's the recipe.
Okay. Well, we're going to be touching on, how you built your team, the type of culture that you're building at Ariston a little bit later in the episode. Let's fast forward to 2014. This is when you joined Ariston from not being part of Ariston. So Ariston existed. They were doing their thing. It was Reg. And did he have partners at the time?
No, it was just Reg running the business.
Yep.
He had Keith Barrett, who's still with us, Bodine Henningsen is still with us, Clavin Saramba is heading up our Botswana division at the moment. So, there was a small team that was operating. I had just left corporate, having been, always wanting to get involved in entrepreneurship,
Okay.
always wanted that freedom and the excitement of building something, creating a legacy. And we were actually introduced to each other, myself and Reg, by a mutual friend. And he said, hey, listen, you guys are doing, opposite ends of the same business spectrum. You could share clients. And we got together and, I'm very risk averse. And we started seeing a few clients together and things like that. And after a few engagements, Reg was like, this is not working out. You need to get involved. Right? Because we gelled on a personal level.
Yeah.
Our personalities, we're very different
Yin
in a
and
lot
yang.
of ways, right? But we're able to gel and work together, right? And achieve things greater than what we would be had we been separate. So we were both successful in what we were doing, but it was just we could see there was something there.
Yeah. There was an article that came out in one of the business publications talking about Ariston's growth post-merger. When I say post-merger, is post you joining Ariston from 30 to 40%, over 215% compound annual growth. I mean, is that something that we attribute to you joining the team, or was there some strategic things that just happened to come into play as you joined? Because that is a large leap, in such a small space of time. Can you give us some insights into how that came about?
Look, I would love to say it was me, right? Massive bragging rights, but no, it wasn't. So, again, something from psychology, this Gestalt psychology that says that the sum of the whole, or the whole, is greater than the sum of the individual parts, right? So like I alluded to earlier, we were both successful in our own right, but when we came together, it unlocked opportunities, right? So to be a bit cliched, you talk of synergies. We identified the synergies and we leveraged, right, that to compound the growth. So we both were focusing on separate things within the business. It allowed us to focus on our strengths as opposed to, make up for our weaknesses. And we were able to achieve that. And I'm glad to say we're actually exceeding that at the moment. The numbers are phenomenal because we're sticking to the recipe, of what we do.
And that's possibly one of the things that I see Ariston succeeding at in a somewhat competitive landscape. Because if you take a look at South Africa over the last couple of years, there have been quite a few advisory firms coming to the forefront, with products like Zero coming into the market, making it easier for that barrier for accountants to get into the advisory space. there's a lot of accountants who play in the same space that you play. But that statement that you just made now, we're sticking to a recipe which has made us successful over the years. Give us just 2 ingredients that you're currently using in your recipe that not set you apart, but make you successful and make your clients, happy to stay with you and pay the fees that they pay.
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna actually add a bit more value, because that's what we do.
Okay.
We add value.
Yeah.
It'll be 3 things, right? And it's not something phenomenal. It's not going to be a shocker.
Yep.
3 things we leverage, right? People, process, and technology, right? So we make sure we have the best people available for the job. We don't accept toxicity. We don't accept closed-mindedness. We want forward-thinking, innovative individuals, right? That are agile and flexible and able to adapt to whatever comes our way, right? So we've got amazing people. 20% of our workforce are individuals that have left and come back, right? Because we know how to take care of people. So people. The next thing is process, right? We try and define and map out and engineer the results we're looking for. Quality doesn't just happen. Success doesn't just happen, right? We leave very little to luck. We try and put systems in place to achieve what we want to achieve. And the last thing is technology, right? We use the technology as an enabler. So the tech doesn't define us, right? It enables us to do certain things, either to fill in gaps that people have, to improve productivity, or to automate processes. Okay. So by using those things and, using data as a feedback loop as to whether we're successful or not, we're able to achieve what we need to do. But it's engineered, it's planned, it's strategic. A lot of people use these words, strategy and so on, like it's something something a wizard would do, right? No, it's not. It's engineering an outcome. It's doing something differently. We don't have access to anything that no one else has. We just use it better.
Okay, I like that. Sounds like a winning recipe. As group managing executive, what does organizational capability mean to you, and how do you build it in the clients that you're servicing?
Okay, so organizational capability is a term we coined and started using a few years back, because I saw the growth in the HR space. HR used to be about just people, all right? And it was about finding people for a requirement. And what we looked at doing was looking beyond that today's requirement into the future requirement. And we looked beyond just people, because I'm a firm believer is in, if you have a problem, you don't just throw people at it. You have to see if it's a process issue and how you can leverage your technology to fix the problem as well before you throw people at the problem, right? And that's where we see organizational capability being. It's about that big picture. How does the organization achieve what it needs to achieve?
Talking about technology and people, where does that intersect for you from a recruitment perspective come into play? Because a lot of the times and in a lot of the discussions that I have on a daily basis with accountants, recruitment is one of the major issues that they're currently, facing.
Sure.
The people coming out of university do not have the capabilities to come in and basically start managing clients. And the learning curve is getting longer and longer. So from an Ariston perspective, how do you mitigate the challenge of people coming in without the right experience, or they're not going to have experience coming in without, let's call it, the right technology know-how in order to work in a tech forward firm like yours?
Sure. So look, we we in the business of providing organizational capability to clients, right?
Yep.
A lot of our clients don't want to do what we do. They're subject matter experts in their fields.
Okay.
So it's incumbent on us to ensure we have the best skill available. And like you mentioned, it's a challenge. But when it comes to skill, you build, buy, or borrow. So we borrow that skill out to other people, right? As an advisory firm, as a provider of organizational capability. We do not take a viewpoint of buying skill in. A lot of companies fight for talent, right? They want to go out and they want to find it.
Yeah.
We believe strongly in building. We take in young talent who have the right attitude, right? May not have the right skill set, and we develop them. We give them an opportunity. I remember, coming out of Durban, moving to Johannesburg, getting all the excuses under the sun why I couldn't be given a job, right? I was too young, I was too old, I was overqualified, underqualified, wrong race, wrong gender, no experience, you name it, okay? And I had to make a way for myself in the world, right? And that's what we tried to remove as a barrier for individuals and from our talent perspective as well. We rather find people that are looking and are hungry for an opportunity, that have the right attitude, that are ambitious, right? And we build them. We give them the skills required in order to be successful in the workplace. So it's a bold strategy that we have.
One of the things that you've advocated for a very long time is shifting from a compliance to a development-heavy skills investment for the future. Is that one of the things that you feel is holding a lot of South African businesses back? The fact that we don't invest in, upliftment. We expect to have the finished article walking into the business from day one.
100%. 100%. So everyone's fishing in the small talent pool, right? That is escalating their costs phenomenally, because no one's adding more talent into that pool.
Yeah.
Right? We're doing a lot of things from a transformational perspective. So we're doing the equity reports, and we're doing the skills development, and we're participating in learnerships, and we're doing BBBEE and so on. But we're not doing it for the right reasons. Okay? We're not integrating it strategically into our businesses to leverage the value it can add, right?
Yeah.
To differentiate ourselves. And there is value to add. I mean, we're reaping the benefits. Our staff are reaping the benefits. Our clients are reaping the benefits from our BE strategies.
Yeah.
It's not about compliance. It's not about points. It's about, again, organizational capability. How are you the best in your field, leveraging the people, the process, and the technologies that you have, right? It's about winning.
It's about winning. And we can all win together if we just leverage technology a little bit more.
Correct.
Tech is changing everything. And as you guys grow, it's y'all's advisory recruitment, what in technology are you seeing and what's exciting you the most? Because, you touched on your 3-part recipe, and I work for a tech company, so that one is going to resonate a little bit more than anything else with me.
Sure.
Technology seems to be at the core of, or one of the core aspects of what makes Ariston successful. So what's exciting? What are you working on? What do you see that's going to really be a game changer in the industry over the next couple of years?
Okay, so like I alluded to in the beginning, right? I'm a geek, a tech geek, right? As much as I'm, as educated in the people field, having grown up with things like Star Wars and whatnot, you always have this vision of these amazing things that are going to happen, and the future, teleportation and hovering cars, all these amazing things. And you see things that are happening around you, and it might not be at that scale, but you realize how cool things are, right?
Yeah.
And you realize how things have been simplified for you, okay? I mean, I don't stress about my handwriting anymore, right? Because that's, personal notes to myself, emails and letters and stuff are all typed out. But we can see development, we can see opportunity. And it's not like, when I got my first computer, you needed to boot up the system and you needed to go to the C prompt and find the executables files and run the program. Now it's icons, it's GUI, it's graphical user interface. We're touching things, and you want to program something, it's low code, and it's what you see, what you get. Technology is now accessible, provided we open up our minds to it, right? We understand the value it can add, right? And we manage the change management aspect. So getting people to engage with the tech, to adopt the tech, to use the tech. It's not just about downloading an app, okay? It's about getting the people involved in the process. It's the value, it's a time saving. Okay, our stats are a bit different now. I don't have the latest available, but at one stage, we doubled our client base, we doubled our revenue with the exact same number of staff, right? We have more building space than we require, because initially when we went on a growth path, we thought it was dependent on having, a lot more people and whatnot. But now it's about having better quality individuals that are using the technology to improve their productivity, producing better quality of work, right? Moving away from data capturing. So a lot of accountants, historically were data capturers. You took data off a physical page and you put it into a system. I mean, with OCR, with, machine learning and all these fancy things, we're now able to get rid of that aspect from a labor perspective and rather use the time and effort to analyze the information, to do trend analysis, to give value-adding knowledge to our clients, right? So not just information, not just data, we're giving them knowledge and they're applying their wisdom to grow their businesses in turn. And that's how we bring value adding in that space.
Let's pivot to people. As one of the key components in your recipe, what's your personal leadership style and how has it evolved over the last, call it 10 years?
Wow. Okay. So, there's various leadership styles. You analyze people and you see how they achieve things. The reality is that as a leader, you need to see your leadership tools and styles as a toolbox, right? You use different tools for different situations. So, when the chips are down and we need to achieve something and we're low on resources, time, whatever the case is, I tend to be very autocratic, very bold. It's about getting stuff done, right? But in other instances, on the other end of the spectrum, I'm the office jester, right? So cracking jokes, being the joker, making sure everyone's having fun. There needs to be laughter, there needs to be happiness, and so on. And that's changed over the years because, originally I used the traditional command and control methodology. I was not a very nice leader, not very friendly, not very engaging. I was very successful though, right? But times have changed and you realize that you achieve more when you have buy-in from your team, when everyone works together, when you break down the hierarchies, when people are having fun. On a Friday must be depressing because I'm not at the office. What am I going to do for the next 2 days? Sunday must be exciting. I get to see my team again, This is what it's about. This is how businesses succeed.
And you guys seem to be building a team with very varied age demographics. So it doesn't seem as if your leadership style is affecting the type of people that you're bringing into the organization, because there's some people there that are way younger than me, and then there's some people that are way older than me that work at Ariston. So clearly you're doing something right when it comes to the type of people that you're recruiting from a cultural perspective, but also from a team player perspective. What is the toughest internal decision that you've had to make working at Ariston, and what did you learn from said decision?
From a people perspective, or?
Yes, from a people perspective, correct.
Look, we always take care of our staff. I mean, we're one of a few companies during COVID, we paid our staff in full. There were times where, as directors, businesses go up and down. You're going to have your bad times, right? Where we took the decision not to take salaries, but made sure people were paid.
Yep.
Okay. We do things for our staff. Like I said, it's about the environment. It's the culture. Age is not a descriptor, it's about the attitude. It's about the skill set. That's what we focus on, not age. Gone are the days where you say, hey, listen, I want someone with 20 years experience. You find me someone with 20 years ChatGPT experience. Not going to happen, right? Things change. Redundancy of information and skill is a lot faster. So you need individuals that are ambitious, people that are driven, right? People that realize that they need to maintain their skill set. It's not going to university and that is it. It's continuous professional development. Okay.
Is that something that you incentivize at Ariston? Because it sounds as if you have that within you already. You want to know what's the latest technology on there. You mentioned it 4 times now that you're a geek. So is that something that you incentivize your team to do, or are you just finding like-minded people who are as geeky as you are about technology?
No. So we show the opportunity. We showcase the opportunity, right? I don't like that old patriarchal view of where you need to drive people to achieve certain things and you need to incentivize them. I'm old school that way, right? You need to know what you want to achieve. You need to understand competition and you need to drive yourself. If you've got that ambition, come and see us and we can see how we can support you on that journey, right? There's a lot of staff that have grown incrementally, right? From when they joined us to the qualifications that they have today. We provide the environment, the ecosystem. They do the rest of the stuff. This mentality of no, my company must do it, that's not Ariston.
You and your team recently engaged with Kids Haven on empowering some young leaders. How did that project resonate with you? What was it all about? How did it come about? Is it something that you're supporting on a regular basis?
Yes, it is. So, we try and get involved as much as possible in terms of giving back, in terms of making a difference in people's lives. We're not the kind of people that complain about where we are as a country, right? We're not in a position to fix everything, but we do our part to make a difference, right? And we try and help those that don't necessarily or aren't necessarily able to do it for themselves. One of our clients invested heavily in a computer lab for Kids Haven. We belong to a CEO club, myself and Reginald Pillay, our CEO, where we get together on a monthly basis and we, get together for leisure, but we talk business and we also contribute on a monthly basis. And at the end of the year, we sponsor people to do their qualifications. 3 of the students at Kids Haven were sponsored by us last year to complete their matric. There's been individuals whose university qualifications we've contributed towards. And it's not for marketing purposes. It's, if we complain, we can say we have a reason to complain because we try to be part of the solution, not just the problem. And seeing people develop. I mean, you can't get greater value than that, right? There's the butterflies you get from knowing that people are benefiting from what you're doing. It's just phenomenal.
The fact that you're even saying it's not something for marketing and put a spotlight on us. So look at us, we're doing some good in the community. I had to find this doing research. I didn't even know you guys would do this thing. I was like, Jesus, I didn't even know they'll have a community outreach wing of Ariston that focuses on the youth and who's next. It's a good thing. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Let's go to a little bit on the personal side. Outside of pipelines, meetings, numbers, growth strategies, all these great things that you seem to love, what do you do to disconnect? to recharge, to re-inspire yourself?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic. So a lot of people talk of work-life balance, right?
Ah,
Uh, I don't believe in work-life balance. I enjoy what I do, right?
I can tell them. I
I
can
don't
hear.
I don't watch sport. I've never been a spectator of anything. I don't play sports. I do go to gym. Uh, but my hobby is business, right?
Mm,
Uh, when someone sees, when I see a client doing well, when I see we've done something amazing for a client, right? That's I think what other people get when they see their favorite team scoring a goal, or taking a wicket, or scoring a try, or whatever.
yep.
We love what we do, right? Uh, there's no work-life balance. Having said that, there is family time, messing around with the kids and having fun with them, wrecking their brains. I'm basically a very old child. I'm not going to give my age away. So it's about having fun. It's about laughing. It's about enjoying life, not taking things so seriously.
You have
Uh,
two girls, right?
yeah, two daughters.
Ages?
I beg your pardon?
Ages?
One's going to be 13 in November and the other 15 in December.
Oh man, these are big girls, man. Such little ladies. These are big girls who are going into the lady stage of their. How are they? Them growing up. How is that shaping the way you tackle your everyday? Because as someone who's as entrenched in technology, you know where we're going. You can see, the changes within the industries that we work in every day. You work with many businesses across multiple industries. Where do you see opportunities for 15-year-old and a 13-year-old young lady growing up in a world that is changing very quickly and is driven by technology? What do you tell them to focus on if you'll have these conversations about the future?
Look, it's two things. Firstly, I drive them towards what they enjoy, what they're strong at, right?
Yeah.
What they can be successful at, because there needs to be longevity in whatever choice they make. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, you can change. My career has changed a number of times, but you need to start somewhere and you need to have a base that you build on.
Mhm.
On the flip side, I always push them towards business, right?
Okay.
It's about being an entrepreneur, being able to spot either a need or an opportunity, being able to conceptualize something that can be monetized. Um, this is where I see the future. But at the end of the day, it's about flexibility and agility.
Yeah.
We've had change from forever. So, the guy that used to do the blacksmithing on the horses had to
Mhm.
have the foresight to realize, hey, this internal combustion engine might just hamper my business. What do I do next? Let's
Mhm.
move from blacksmithing into, coach building kind of thing.
That kind of leads into that old saying, the jack of all trades but the master of none. It almost feels as if in today's world, that jack of all trades is actually the guy who's going to be able to pivot into that next thing a little bit more than the master of one, um, with technology and things becoming a little bit more automated. So if you aren't able to, see a gap somewhere else, pivot into that and take advantage of the opportunities that it brings, you're not going to eat.
100%. So, you always need to be scanning what's happening.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do, I love, bikes and cars and stuff. So I ride motorcycles. When you're
Yeah.
riding a motorcycle, everything is trying to kill you all of the time, right? So you have to be very switched on and very aware. And what we do is, we scan ahead of us,
Yeah.
5 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters. So we know what's going to happen before it happens, right?
Okay.
We can see the driveway gate opening, knowing that a vehicle or child or person is going to exit there. So keep that in your periphery vision. Okay. Same thing in business, right?
Mm.
There are clues everywhere as to what's happening. You just need to be able to look out and see and just scan. Initially, just scan, right? So it's on your radar. And then as you get closer, monitor what are the developments, what are the changes, what's going to happen. You know, you don't react immediately. You see the driveway gate opening, so you change roads. No, you get closer and then you evaluate what is it that's there, and then you take action. But it's having that foresight. You know, when we're myopic and we're just focusing on what's in front of us, that's when we get blindsided. Okay, it's with technology as well, with people as well, with legislation, with everything. Know what's happening, and always be aware, always be nimble and flexible enough to be able to react. So a few years ago, I wrote an article on Black Swan events. I think it was during COVID, actually. And I reflected on previous events that had major impact on business in the world. Things like the 2008 property bubble, right? There were clues there that was going to happen. You had to react to it. I was lucky that I was able to react to that. There was something else that blindsided us. I was checked in on a flight to Zurich, and we got told, no, there was a volcano in Iceland, right? And they're grounding all flights into Europe, right? Northern Hemisphere. And we thought it was a joke, okay? It wasn't a joke. A volcano went off in Iceland that affected and grounded aircraft in southern Africa. So things happen, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to react to them. And you can't take a myopic view on things.
Okay. If you weren't in business, what would you be doing?
Stand-up comedian.
Oh.
No. That's a good question. You know, I was good in corporate. I enjoyed corporate. I love human resources and people and finding solutions. There's that option. There's other interests that I have, but I think it's something that just drove me, the flexibility of it, the ability to create a legacy, the creativity side. I might have been in the creative industry. I don't know. I love the opportunity what I do gives me to be creative in terms of problem solving, in terms of looking at new things, putting pieces of the puzzle together, you know. So it's difficult to say. Probably all roads would have led to this point in my life.
You mentioned now legacy twice. What is that legacy that you're trying to leave? And why is it important to you?
Look, ultimately I want to leave a world better than the way I found it. It's about giving as many people opportunities to achieve great things, right? Yes, in a few generations, I would be forgotten, as are most people. But for me personally, it's that fulfillment of knowing that, you know what, we've done something amazing. If I look back, you know, at family, what my grandparents and great grandparents did, and where I am today, right? And how I was able to build off their legacy. And giving my kids an opportunity to lead a better life than that I lived, and their kids and so on. But also the staff that work for us, you know, making sure they achieve their dreams and they achieve amazing things and their kids live a better life than they're leading right now. It's just about making things better at the end of the day.
Very inspiring, brother. Finally, what one hope do you have for the future of the South African economy and just business as in general in our country?
One hope.
So that's not the final question. That's the second to final question.
I hope people start doing the right thing for the right reasons, right?
Okay.
government needs to stop putting all their inabilities onto business. It's a very burdensome environment. We are inundated with legislation and compliance and, taking care of things that are basic that should be provided for by a government, right? There's a lot of challenges that we have, and there's a lot of things that are being done that isn't value adding. And, this is controversial at the moment, but everyone's on about BEE, right? And the ownership part of BEE. There's, what was the statistic I saw? 1,000 companies paying tax. 1,000 companies responsible for 74% of the tax.
I saw that one as well. Yes,
right?
I did see that one.
Now, from an ownership perspective, what is that going to help the millions of South Africans getting out of poverty?
Yep.
It's not. But it's an inhibitor for us getting outside investment and companies coming in, or people investing in businesses, because now they're going to need to look at sharing ownership, right? It's counter entrepreneurship. Okay? So that's the one thing. It's a false thing. When I look at BE, and I hope I'm not, going to segue into something else, but just a quick point. BE started off as BE ownership. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we had broad-based BE, which is about all the brilliant things: management control, skills development, enterprise development, socioeconomic development, and whatnot. Maybe the next step is to drop ownership and just focus on those things. Because if we invest in people, if we provide for skills development and give people employment opportunities and whatnot, there's a greater probability that will improve the economy, right? And I'm going to get back. From a business perspective, it's about getting business to do the right things. Yes, you've got this compliance burden. Forget the points, right? Look at how you can leverage in order to improve your competitiveness, your competitive advantage. Get your skills pipeline in place, right? Adopt the right technologies that you need to do. Put those strategies in place, okay? And that would be my wish, for people to start doing the right things.
That's a big wish. That's a genie in a bottle type wish. Then lastly, if you could give South African business owners and also future entrepreneurs one piece of advice. Actually, this is going to be my second to last question. There's one coming after this as well. One piece of advice for South African business owners coming into the game, who are currently in the game, struggling through the game. What is that piece of advice?
It would be to focus on those three things I mentioned: your people, process, and technology, right? Get those systems in place. Get the right people in place. When we were in corporate, I could pick up the phone and phone anyone. Chief marketing officer, chief legal officer, chief financial officer. Okay, I was in HR, so I was a chief HR officer. But you had all those skills around the table. Business today for entrepreneurs, we have the same legislation as those large corporates, right? You need to take care of all those things around you. So surround yourself. You're not going to be able to hire the best skill immediately, right? Get the right partners that can provide you that organizational capability, so you have that protections, you have that insight and knowledge, right? But focus on the three basics: people, process, and technology, right? Obviously, you need that is there for the customer and supplying a customer need or solving a customer problem, right? But that's why you're in business, right? That's a given. I mean, if you're not solving a problem and you're not supplying something, you're wasting your time. But once you've identified that, focus on those basics.
Final question.
Sure.
You run into Suran at 12 years old right now. What do you say to him about where it is that we are going?
Well, firstly, I'm going to tell him to buy Bitcoin, invest in gold.
I like that.
Hindsight is good, but after we get all of that, it was back to the.
Okay, all of that out the way now. Okay,
that's out the way. What advice would I give him? It would be to, I actually wouldn't change a thing.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm gonna leave it at that before you now give your time self some time to think about that one. That is actually a very good answer. And I was hoping that you'd actually leave us with something amazing, and not changing a thing in your journey is more amazing than give me some platitude of, dude, just focus on school and no. Don't change a thing. I like that. Suran, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights into business, into how you built a fantastic brand, Ariston Global. We wish you all the success here from the show. And again, thank you so much for making the time for us, and have a good one.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Take care. Bye.